You're listening to the Modern Mainframe, BMC's Intelligence Z Optimization and Transformation podcast, covering the latest trends and issues in mainframe DevOps, data, operations, security, and cloud. You've never mainframed like this. Greetings. This is the Modern Mainframe podcast, and I'm Matt Dallaire. Our topic today is turning scattered knowledge into smart conversations. With institutional knowledge that is scattered across organizations in the form of manuals, support tickets, and expert know-how constrained by siloed teams, and how generative AI, LLMs, SLMs, and AI agents can help bring this knowledge together to help bridge mainframe knowledge gaps and improve productivity. Joining me for today's discussion are Intellyx Director and Principal Analyst Jason English, and from BMC, Senior Manager of Product Management Liat Sokolov, and Distinguished Engineer Anthony DiStauro. Jason, Liat, Anthony, thanks for being here today.
Hi, everyone.
So Jason, I'll be turning the reins over to you shortly, but to set the scene a bit, can you speak about what you're seeing in the industry? Like, what are the biggest challenges organizations face today when trying to access this scattered information? And why do you think the mainframe industry has been slower than other IT areas to consolidate institutional knowledge and modernize how it's managed and delivered to users?
Thanks, Matt. That's a good question. I mean, I wouldn't even say that the mainframe industry is behind the rest of the industry in terms of actual productive use. I mean, here, at Intellyx, we're exposed to this gamut of all of these different forms of AI solutions in our vendor briefings. So every day we, see OpenAI, Microsoft, Anthropic, and Google like duking it out in the headlines over who's got the best LLM at the time. But it's really easy to get caught up in the differences between different algorithms and LLMs and SLMs and GenAI and now agentic AI. And so to get beyond those buzzwords, all that really matters is the results AI can produce for improving mainframe development and operations. And so the most critical shortage AI can address in this space is augmenting the capabilities of an already constrained mainframe team. And in this context, reinforcement learning is a two-way street. So the existing code base and all of the team's documented changes and issue resolutions and activities and conversations are all captured as a corpus of data that feeds a knowledge base. And in turn, that knowledge base or knowledge hub reinforces the learning process of helping newer team members pick up the slack and become productive more quickly. But it also, saves experienced SMEs a lot of time, so they spend less time helping, other team members get up to speed and sorting through reference material and doing the same thing twice and helping them automate a lot of the activities that they really wanted to get out of the AI solutions. So, I would definitely posit that, mainframe teams have the capability to actually leverage AI in a more productive way than a lot of other areas, such as, saying vibe coding new apps or people doing chat bots for customer service. There's a lot of other very useful things that could be done, but the practical use cases are really evident in this space in particular. So, what I'd kind of like to talk with the team about a bit is, what are some of the hidden costs or risks that companies incur when they're spending too much time, hunting for information or trying to help bring the team forward when they're so constrained and have so few, SMEs these days.
Yeah, so I could jump in on this. This is Anthony. Well, when you phrase the question that way, it really comes down to operational risk amplification, right? You look at teams where they can't access this critical domain knowledge or institutional knowledge. It just elongates the time it takes to a resolution. For example, you may have a typical problem that seasoned folks may work on it for a few days, to resolve. But because of this problem with knowledge, not easily accessible, whether it's scattered, whether it's outdated organizational methodologies in place, or it's just that, domain expertise has retired and or moved on and you don't have that go-to person to go to. So things that normally should take days to resolve may take weeks or even longer. And then what happens is as it's elongated, then you find yourself in that situation. I think we all find ourselves in that situation from time to time. Then you're under immense pressure to try to get it resolved as quick as you can. And because of that, you can even introduce more risk because of this type of problem.
Yeah, so if I can add to that, I think that every time someone says, ask Mike or ask Sharon, that's really a failure of your knowledge system, right? So we've been hearing from customers that getting into the information or to the unspoken or unwritten knowledge is the hardest thing. And as Anthony mentioned, sometimes it takes days to resolve an incident or an escalation that's never been seen before. You need to find your way around PDFs or other tools that are scattered and fragmented. And this is a decision paralysis that our customer sometimes feel in that domain.
Yeah, Liat, to your point, who's that person, Mike? I've talked to one of our customers before who was Mike, and Mike was like, every year I delay my retirement because I feel like the team is not ready for me to leave. And he
Yeah,
goes,
poor Mike.
yeah, poor Mike. And he says, there's a level of guilt that I'm dealing with where I just cannot go yet because they're not ready. And, so they're
Um,
looking at, AI technology as, you know, filling in and being Mike
yeah,
by training and educating artificial
yeah.
intelligence to, to pick up that gap or that slack when Mike eventually does decide to retire.
Yeah, I think when we are building our Amy Assistant solution, we have Mike in our minds, right?
Absolutely, we do. Yeah, without a doubt.
All right.
Yeah, we still want them to become future mics, right? We want them to eventually gain that level of expertise where they know where to look, but that they're just working more efficiently, but that they don't feel that pressure. Just like if they don't stay on forever, what's going to happen to the team, right?
Right.
That's a very valuable part of it. I mean, a big part of it is just making Mike better at doing his day-to-day job. If we're going to use him as our archetypal SME, right? In these environments. So, I mean, how does Gen AI help address these kind of widening skill gaps that we're seeing in this space, so that we can bring up that future generation of mics to that level of expertise?
Yeah, so I think generative AI or AI assistants as a whole are not like a magic stick, right? They have their own limitations. But if we're looking deeply in that, so the generative AI is brilliant at language, right? But it may be dumb at your business, right? It needs this grounding, just like a new hire.
Yep.
So the same way as you wouldn't throw ChatGPT at a mission critical ZOS problem and hope for the best, I think it's great for summarizing, explaining, exploring, but only when it's paired with the enterprise context. And this is exactly what we are doing or trying to emphasize. And with conversation with our customers, we always say that we have this grounding with our own SME's knowledge. And obviously, once you ingest the customer domain knowledge, that can be a force multiplier to the problem of the knowledge access, or making sense of what's out there hidden between the COBOL code lines or in some hidden folders in your organization.
So that's a really good point. I like what you were saying there about the grounding, right? So from a BMC Amy Assistant perspective, we've done a lot as far as the underlying technology that's driving that to deal with grounding data. That's for all the good that large language models bring us. The shortcomings are just that they don't. First of all, they have a cutoff date on their training material, right? So technically, you roll out LLMs into a production environment. Technically, every day that goes by, that LLM becomes further out of date. But most importantly, that LLM doesn't have any of your institutional knowledge, right? It doesn't have that grounding data that you're talking about, and that's what gives those LLMs relevance. So it's the grounding data and even domain expertise in a particular area, whether it's banking or finance, insurance, or IT operations. You need to enhance the capabilities with that type of domain specific knowledge. So it's this collection of grounded data that's relevant to your domain, grounding data that's relevant to your business and to your operations, etc. So yeah, that's really important that you build and design a system so that it's a adaptable to a giving domain's wants and needs when it comes to AI assistance.
Yeah, Anthony, you really are touching on something there about the shortcomings of what we expected from GenAI or from an LLM. We can't expect it to automatically be up to date with the latest happenings, as well as having that industry specific knowledge. So we really need to help teach it what matters to the particular business case. And so, can either of you kind of unpack how we transfer some of that domain level knowledge and some of that team level knowledge to something like Amy Assistant, and make it a little more aware of the business context of what it's working on right now?
Sure, I can definitely start from one very important aspect of it. So when we talked about all these things, and I'll get into the details of the specifics that we do to, bring that domain knowledge in. But really what we're trying to do here with large language models is also limit hallucinations, right? That's the biggest challenge with large language models, right? Because we all kind of joke about how they confidently potentially could give you the wrong information, right? So we want to reduce those hallucinations, and that grounding data, domain data is critically important. So how do we extend BMC Amy Assistant to do that? We give our customers all the tooling necessary for them to very simply process their domain specific knowledge, whether it's in the domain or their business operations, development best practices, whatever they want. They have the tooling to infuse that into BMC Amy Assistant. Without getting all to the gory technical details, but there is an additional database that we create that lives side by side with the language model, and we augment the language model with all that domain specific information. Now that's just one part of it. We also, with our BMC Amy Assistant solution, we also distribute our own knowledge base from our own domain expertise that lives side by side with the large language model, as well as we have access to all our BMC Amy product data to also augment the language model. So it's an infusion of multiple sources of information from BMC and our customer, infused into BMC Amy Assistant, living side by side with the LLM. That's what brings relevance to the responses that we get out of BMC Amy Assistant.
Yeah.
And relevance in responses is not only accuracy and the relevance of the information, it's also the persona that is interacting with the assistant to get the information back in a form that means something to them, whether in operations, whether in development, whether they're in management. And also we have to take into account their skill levels within those personas that they play.
Yep.
And why this can become a very frustrating point. If you're a seasoned developer, you want responses from your AI assistant to be at a level and be meaningful at your skill level. You don't want the AI assistant to respond to you. You're like your new in career engineer or new in career person in ops. You want it given back to you and structured and formed in a place that's relevant for you. So if I am that new in career engineer, I would like my responses to be very detailed and very verbose on what I need to do. So it's the collection of information and understanding who you are, the persona and your skills and your level of skills. All of this comes together that gives you really good relevance at a BMC Amy Assistant. That's the way we look at the problem.
Yeah. So just to add to that, when we are in front of customers and, hearing some questions from others, they may ask us, why not use the ChatGPT, right? That's free. That can give us answers. But yeah, if you try it, you'll get fast answers, but they won't be yours, right? They won't know your systems, your configurations, your own history, the persona. It's like, to me, if I think about that, it's like hiring this genius intern or genius employee who never seen your environment before. It might be helpful, right? But is it reliable when you have a crisis or when you need immediate response of an incident that is happening in your systems? I don't think it's even close.
Right. That is very astute, Liat. I like that comparison. In fact, it kind of leads me to the next part of this discussion. Yeah, I love specialized language models as opposed to LLMs, right? Or you could call them small language models, specific language models. I think you call them there at BMC. But working alongside a broader LLM, which is more like it could be like that could be a conversational interface that talks to lots and lots of specialized models. Some of them are really good at understanding COBOL, right? And if you limit the knowledge that they need to do that particular task, they could be really, really good at it and almost 100% accurate because they're not dealing with the variability of human conversations at that point, right? You're talking about uh, a model that understands the language of mainframes, whether it's COBOL or whether it's looking at DB2 or looking at some other aspects that are sitting in those programs, right? And so how do SLMs help you kind of tackle these niche needs that we find so often? And how does your overall assistant approach orchestrate these specific language models to kind of bring them into the fold as whether they're as models or if you consider them as agents? I'm kind of
Yeah.
curious about your take on that.
I like to think about it as, LLMs are generalists and SLMs are like those focus specialists, right? Your experts that know your domain inside and out. And AI agents even take it further. They don't just talk or explain or recommend, they also do, they act. So instead of just answering a question, for example, about a job failure, the agent can actually fetch the logs, check the history, correlate changes. And that's actually the leap, right? From chat to action.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just add something to what you were saying about, specialized language models or small language models. So the work that we've done in the lab, we've experimented and explored a lot the behavior of large language models. And what we've noticed that, you can overtax a large language model with multi-step operations and trying to do too much in one, say, operation or one go at the LLM, just like a human being would. Any
Mm-hmm.
one of us that are just overloaded with tasks, we're not going to do any one particular task all that well, right? Because we're kind of thrashing between all these things that we're trying to get done. And we noticed that same type of behavior with large language models. And when we start to shift towards AI agents, our views of language models has changed. So instead of having these large language models trying to do multiple things, multi-step operations, and they could be multi-step disconnected operations, we start to focus on the AI agent and specializing language models for what that AI agent is designed to do, right? So think about an AI agent as your intelligent digital worker. It's goal oriented, it's trying to solve a problem, and it's really good on solving a particular problem. So we could have a specialized language model, which is fine tuned and infused with specific types of information for that particular role that agent has to achieve, the goal that agent's trying to achieve. And when we started making those steps that way, from our research, we were getting really good responses from the AI agents. Now we start working with collection of agents that are collaborating with each other, and each one has a specialized skill, and we can orchestrate those skills to solve really complex IT or DevOps types of problems. So we look at that specialized language model as the driving factor, the brain of that AI agent.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this definitely dovetails with our thinking right now about there really won't be one AI or LLM model to rule them all. It's going to be a lot of very specialized models that are orchestrated by larger context pictures that have even having specific agents that are owned by particular people in particular roles that maintains their context as they're talking to a host of different services out there. And so it's almost like just like we service oriented our applications and like we want to service orient the existing code base into something more digestible for integration. If we build by design our Gen AI systems to be that way from the start, I think we're not going to have as much technical debt to deal with. There's always going to be some, but it's going to really help us um, escape that risk that we had from our previous generations of application development, I think.
That's a great point. There are parallels between this approach to agentic-based AI, right, and the orchestration of these specialized agents. And the orchestration comes in two forms. It could be prescriptive, where we clearly map out, step 1, step 2, step 3, step N, and orchestrate clearly the agents to solving a goal and achieving a business outcome. Or, we're moving to the part where we can have an orchestration agent that coordinates with the other agents, and they're the ones that are making the decision how to work amongst themselves to solve a particular problem. It's not prescriptive. It's more dynamic in that sense. But the parallels are just the way we see the benefits of moving towards a service-oriented architecture or a microservice-based architecture. We're breaking out roles and responsibilities between the different services. We're kind of looking at the AI agents the same way. We want to make these things reusable, right? So we can have a pool or workforce of AI agents that we can combine in different and creative ways to solve new types of problems, but reusing agents to do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Just to add to Anthony's note that, I think it's also when we are using SLMs, it's maybe also building trust and gets our customers more comfortable to use that in production environments, right? If they are not generalists, LLMs or something that is trained for a specific domain, like the ZOS, the Kicks, the Rakef, or whatever have you, it builds more trust to that.
Yeah, exactly. So if we're going to give our assistants or agents access to all of these secure systems, right? Within our four walls, we want to make sure that they're not sharing or exporting that information to some external model, which is definitely the if you use like a generic LLM, that's what you would be doing. You'd be talking to some external service, whereas Amy Assistant could basically live inside your four walls or live in your environment in essence. But eventually you do want to provide access to more sensitive data. And so how do you kind of enable these agents to have that kind of real-time access to what they need to get to, even if it is somewhat sensitive information, while still retaining that sense of privacy and the importance of having proprietary and private data kept that way? One thing that's often talked about right now is setting up a model context protocol or MLP specifications, which, just like in the secrets of the integration world, when you try to keep secrets and have secure identity and access, the MCP is kind of like set forth as a way to do that by policy. So what's your approach to enabling these agents to securely access what they need and not let them do tasks that they really shouldn't be doing?
Yeah. So Jason, this is a great topic to talk about. Like you just said, at some point these agents need to go out and get, touch systems to get real-time data, et cetera, data beyond the LN, data beyond what was infused in through a retrieval augmented generation process. How do we do this? Well, prior to MCP being announced by Anthropic, and there's been tremendous adoption in our industry, which is fantastic. That's a good thing. Because prior to that, with BMC Amy Assistant, we had to write custom connectors to whatever our agents needed to do, to whatever system we needed it to connect to. We had to write a custom connector. So with MCP now, we're following the protocol with that. But I just want to clear up something. I hear this from a lot of folks, our customers or other engineers. And I think it's the way it's being talked about on blog posts or whatever, YouTube videos. You always hear this phrase: the LLM now has the ability to call a system and get additional real-time data. That's a very incorrect statement, and that's a very scary statement if you really hear what those words mean. The LLM does not just go out and connect to a system and start retrieving data. So to your point, the LLM will make a request back to the system and basically make a request for what it needs. And then it's back in the hands of the engineering team or the architect who's building the system. Control comes back to your code base. The LLM is not making the call. The call comes back to the code base, and then the code base has everything that we know and love about understanding who the user is, what their role-based access is, what they can and cannot do. And then the system decides to make that call or not based on traditional things that we do today when we have to verify a user's identity and verify their authorization, authentication, etc. It falls back in the hands of the engineers. We make the calls to those third-party systems or internal systems to get the data in the context of that user making the request, and then the information is then sent back to the LLM. So I just want to clarify that. Now, going back to MCP is that enablement protocol with the enablement technology that is going to allow connecting the AI to systems. With the current protocol specification, there is some shortcomings around security with that. So, we are taking a hard look on what do we need to do to the specification to harden that when it comes around enterprise software and security and traceability and things of that nature. And we are putting a framework together around the protocol to ensure that with our components of our BMC AMI Assistant system. So no security context is at risk, and that's what we're doing there. But here's the nice thing about MCP. It allows us now to open up our AI system in a standard way for our customers to even bring in tooling from their enterprise or their domain or their ecosystem and extend the capabilities of BMC AMI Assistant without us having to get involved in that connection, right? We're going to make our system extensible so that AMI Assistant's knowledge can grow outside of the static information in the LLM that we talked about earlier and grow the knowledge into these customer-based systems if they so desire to give AMI Assistant even more context to the prompting that we'll be having.
Yeah, if I can add something, I think we are looking at the AI assistant as supportive of our decisions, right? We treat them like the expert in a box or experts next to our shoulders to help us make good decisions. And with that, we cannot rely only on static knowledge, right? This is just not enough. And I think that with MCP, we have the ability to get to the live data, right? The live state, what's happening right now. So the agents will be able to reason over both static documentation and dynamic environments. And this is the bridge, obviously, when secured between both worlds.
That's a fantastic point, right? Because now we have a BMC AMI Assistant chat. You can just type in your request, your question, or to take an action, and that can happen all in real time and get a response that is meaningful now in the moment when you need it as it relates to what you're trying to do. So that's a really, really good point.
Right. It's almost like MCP is an empowerment technology in that sense, just like role-based access, right? We want them to be able to have the resources at their disposal to see what they need to see, and nothing more, nothing less, really, right? That's the idea of the zero trust access or least privilege access or whatever you want to call it. But just having that access is what matters, right? That you can provide an interface for them to open up other databases, whether it's, it could be your service ops system or your ITSM system, or it could be other systems of collaboration. I mean, that's kind of where you can tie the Mainframe team to the larger IT teams initiatives in general. So that really does help prioritize this need for knowledge to be transferred from the Mainframe team up to a more management level of overall IT operations and applications, that enterprise applications group considerations.
Absolutely. That's a great way to look at it. It's about enablement It's about taking advantage of new opportunities. It's taking advantage of new ways of looking at utilizing generative AI. Generative AI is no longer just about questions like how to, or what is, or how can I.
Mhm.
It's more about what's happening in real time in the business and taking action for the business when you need it through AI assistance. So that's a great point.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think just to bring it all back home, let's kind of talk about what is the latest and what BMC is doing right now to enable this kind of AI powered knowledge hub for mainframe teams and for the broader enterprise IT group in general.
So this is a multi answer to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one is like we touched on it a little earlier. The AI assistance system that you're using has to be extensible, right? And that's what we started with BMC Amy Assistant is from the ground up, is fundamentally extensible. We have to make sure that we provide our customers the tooling that they need and the facilities that they need to bring that extra data in that we talked about earlier, the grounding data. That's one part of it. The second part of it is the enablement that you just talked about, the MCP. We got to make sure that our system, we provide the tooling and the means necessary to connect into customer systems. But also, we talked about AI agents a lot, right? Up to this point. AI agents is also not a closed door system neither. So Google announced the agent-to-agent protocol, right?
Mm.
And that's we're using agent-to-agent protocol to have our agents orchestrate and communicate amongst themselves and for our code bases to talk to the agents. That is also going to be a facility in what we're going to be providing is for if customers have agents part of their ecosystem, they could bring their agents into our platform, right? And their agents can communicate to our agents and our agents
Mm.
can communicate to their agents. So the fundamental building blocks of what we're doing with BMC Amy Assistant with third-party systems, with third-party agents, etc. This brings in a totally new level of collaboration between us, the vendor, and our customers on how we can now start brainstorming ideas on how we could utilize agents from both parties to solve particular IT problems. And because of this, we start to shift away from being product feature centric to more business outcome centric. And how do we combine these agents and how do we combine these systems together collaboratively to solve complex problems? Solutions in the future won't come just in the form of product experiences or features in a product experience. They can come as a workforce of AI agents that get deployed into the BMC Amy Assistant ecosystem that solves a particular problem. So solutions being delivered as agents. So with that bubble of facility that we have around BMC Amy Assistant, our customers now can look at BMC Amy Assistant as a strategic tool in their toolbox to assist in bringing up to speed that next generation of mainframers into the workforce. They have all the tooling necessary to infuse what they need into our ecosystem to help fill that knowledge gap or the skills gap or whatever it may be. Those seasoned professionals that are there in the organization today, they now have a tool that they can brain dump into, whether that brain dump is in documentation or video transcripts or meeting notes, design documents, best practices documents around AI ops, around DevOps, SecOps, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
You now have this facility to infuse, and it becomes a strategically important tool like any other tool that you need to manage and run your business. That's the way we're looking at BMC Amy Assistant and all the facilities that will be around that to make that happen.
Yeah, that does bring us full circle, Anthony. Thanks so much for that, because it is about the business outcomes in the end. And it's like I was saying at the very beginning, it doesn't matter what the terminology is or how it's evolved. Just in the last year, even we're already changing our terminology, but it's about the business outcome that you can get from it, and if it allows us to have a sustainable application suite on the mainframe, but also just bring it forward into the future as we continue to modernize our applications, it's going to be invaluable, I think.
Yeah, 100% agree. Where we were even a year ago, as the industry is concerned, to where we are today, it's just tremendous progress moving forward, and the future is extremely exciting. And what we can, what we're going to be capable of doing with the technologies that we have, the standards that are being put in place. I think we're going to be limited at a certain point to our own creativities on what we can do and the things that we can achieve with the technology.
Great. Well, Matt, take us away. I think we've had a really good discussion here today. Yeah.
It's a great discussion. Very interesting, and it really is exciting. We're going to have everybody back on to talk about it again as the future unfolds. Jason, Liat, Anthony, thanks for joining and discussing this for us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Yeah.
And thank you to our listeners. I'll put some links for further information in the show notes, so be sure to check those out. And as always, feel free to let us know what you think. So that's a wrap for today. We'll talk to you next time on The Modern Mainframe. Take care. You're listening to The Modern Mainframe, BMC's Intelligent C Optimization and Transformation podcast, covering the latest trends and issues in mainframe DevOps, data, operations, security, and cloud. You've never mainframed like this.